Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire. I want to talk about the hard stuff, right? You know, one of the things that frustrates me about our industry is we have an incident, and the only way we hear about that is if it makes the news, right? If it's a big enough incident, like the crane tipping over down in Florida a couple weeks ago, right? That was a big enough story. You know, the news had the helicopter out there, and we see this crane, you know, laying in a swamp down there in Florida. Within a matter of hours, that piece of equipment was put back on its wheels and it was out of there, right? And we hear about these two guys in the hospital, which remarkably survived this. These guys fell 115 feet to the ground, and the only thing probably that saved them, of course, was they fell in the swamp. But that's all we've heard, and then it's gone. We'll never hear anything about why that. Now we all know why, probably that crane tipped over, but it's not talked about. We don't talk about the hard stuff. And I sent Brent this quote, and I love this. And this is the kind of things that I hope that we can talk about. The thing, like you said, Bill, the things that we're not doing, because everybody's doing pretty much like you what 1910-269 says we're supposed to do. You know, we're training the guys, we're giving them all the equipment they need. They all have the every piece of equipment that they need to do the job. They have all the PPE, they have everything. But we're still missing something. And that's what we want to talk about in this. And I found this quote, and in fact, I made a little meme. I haven't posted it yet, and I believe in this. When we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction, right? It is uncomfortable to talk about some of this stuff. It is. It makes people uncomfortable. And people, I understand why companies want to try to bury things. You know, I get it. There's a lot of legal things, and there's a lot, but you know, I don't care. We got to talk about what's going on and why it is that people are taking these shortcuts and why they're you know. I know we're getting close to an hour here, and I got a couple more things I want to get your view on, Billy. But you know, we, as I said, I go through this OSHA database and I look at these different incidents. And I talked to you one about the other day with this journeyman lineman that went out on a trouble call, and there were some limbs down. Again, the OSHA report doesn't give you a lot of information, but it talks about him cutting some branches with his fiberglass tool, right? Pruners. And it brought the conductor, or it brought those limbs down on the conductor, and it pulled the primary and the neutral across his bucket. And he grabbed it. He made contact with it, they said with a gloved hand, with a leather glove. And of course it killed him. This was a journeyman lineman. And when you talk about how, you know, it's really common for people to go out there and not think about, you know, what's going to happen when I cut that branch, because he's cut branches 1,000 times and nothing's ever happened. Right. And I always tell people, you're the last one to have the hands on it, and the last one to have the train of thought go through your mind on what got you where you're at, what you're about to do, and what the potential outcome is. You know, so why didn't he anticipate those branches bringing that? You know, because it had never happened before.
Because he didn't believe it would happen.
Exactly. He didn't believe it would happen.
And worse than that, what we've done. So you're a foreman. You've opened up a print, and the first thing you say is, you know, why are we doing it this way? Because you don't get any say in the design. and you've been doing it for 50 years, you know the design could be better. You don't know about right away and stuff, but you wish you had some input, but now you've got to build stupid because it's in your hands, right? So we need to encourage the younger linemen to understand. If they understood how much they knew, they would listen to themselves more. And
Sure.
if you're going to get in the bucket and that fleeting thought was, if that branch goes the wrong way, I'm screwed. You need to take a moment and then act on that thought, because it came from you. It came from the most brilliant person on the job, which is you. And what we do is we dismiss it. Worse than that, our supervisors dismiss it. We'll say, look, I don't really have enough guys today. I really could use another guy. Yeah, that's all you're getting, right? Or you're working a storm. Hey, I'm out of material. Make it work. So we are in an industry where we are forced to make it work all the time. But when it comes to that thought that crosses your mind in your level of expertise, it's been proven the work we do is patterned. Our intuition is exceptional compared to other industries because of the repetition of the work we do. That thought that crosses your mind is almost always right.
Yeah.
And if there's a consequence tied to it, just weigh it and act on it. It's okay if you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right? There's no consequence. There's no problem with being wrong. But if you're right and that phrase is going to come down and it's going to kill me, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
But somehow we have to foster that belief that these guys actually know more than they give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
And then when they start to believe in themselves, Brent comes up with an idea, and I'm like, Brent, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's a good idea. But somebody as bright as you thinking that, I should listen to this for a minute. And we can go ahead with a maybe. We can go ahead with a should be, but not without taking some time to evaluate it. Correct. And have a plan to fail safely. If that branch comes down, what's my get out of jail free card here? Right? That's what's not happening in our industry, is that exact thought process where we teach. And so that what I'm sold on, Mike, and you can tell the passion here. Part of this is from 23 years of seeing the worst case scenarios. Right? Sure. And every time it's a very small change in the front, and that whole trauma goes away. One small thing, that guy had his rubber gloves on. There's a chance he could have pushed those phases away from him and he'd still be alive.
Correct.
One small thing in front. But what we do is we lose our crap at the other end and go through all these investigations and stuff to make that thing never happen again. We need it not to happen in the first place.
It shouldn't have happened in the first place. Yeah.
So we can continue doing all the things we're doing and just add a little bit of that energy up front.
Yeah.
So, and that means do things that create a team aspect with the group. Things that get them to physically engage. I know one company uses the energy wheel. I don't really think that's going to translate, but that's right. But he has it written on a soccer ball, and they pass the ball back and forth. And wherever it lands, I mean, that's brilliant, right? Because Sean Konert, I think is his name, for Michaels, came up with that. And that ball is a physical team thing. You're actually now created a team, and you've created a team out of your crew. And that cascades into a whole different environment. So
sure.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to let me do this. But I'm afraid I'm repeating myself, but this is hard. We use words like complacency, and you and I talk, the cure for complacency is don't be complacent.
Right.
We can have a whole meeting on it for 8 hours, but at the end, that's the cure.
Stop being complacent.
Or you've lost focus. So good. Pay attention. There, we fix that. Right. And we can use words like, and I love the words like we need to be vigilant, right? We need to be focused. We need to pay attention and not complacent. But none of that translates to a change at work.
Right.
Unless you give it an action.
So let me bring something into this equation, guys. First of all, I wouldn't mind going a little bit longer. I think this is
we're good.
I think the dialogue is amazing. Is that okay with you, Billy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm only here because Mike wants me to be here, and you guys, I do whatever you guys tell me.
Let me just bring up a point. It's something I like to talk about when I'm around out in the field. Is you brought up a couple things. You brought up team. You brought up a construct that we're going to implement as far as communication during this teamwork that we're doing here today, and that's where I get line team from. So when we're playing any game, we take a timeout, right? Not a job stop. but we're
Yep.
we're a team. So we don't do a job stop. We just do a huddle, timeout. We just do a huddle. And when we get together for that huddle, it's not a job brief. A job brief, what? That's at the front end, right? And then the incident happens. Then we have a stand down at the back end.
Right.
But in between, why don't we implement? Why don't we try something different? You all brought up. Why don't we try the job huddle? And during this job huddle, we get together. It's late in the day. We're tired. It's hot outside, or maybe it's really cold. And hey, Billy, how you feeling right now, man? We're getting, we're halfway through the day. How do you feel right now? How you holding up? How do you feel? Do you have anything that you're thinking about? Any concerns? Mike, how you doing, man? And well, I don't know. Since this morning when we started, I see some things that just don't make sense to me at this point. And well, let's discuss it. What do you mean by that? What are you saying? And anybody can call a job huddle. Anybody could bring up anything at a job huddle, and let's communicate. And you got to control the ball. It's not that we're going to score a touchdown. It's not that we're going to score that winning basket at the last moment. That's not what we're here for. We got to control the ball. When you control the ball, you always are successful, and we leave winners. All right. And what happens is the ball is our mind. And until we communicate and get together to control that mind, where are we at? Our synchronicity. How do you feeling? How's the team feeling right now? Because I'm telling you, man, the job brief at the beginning, I mean, that's great. But how come we don't break in between? Why? How come we don't have a first quarter, a second quarter, a third quarter, a fourth quarter? How come we don't have timeouts in between? We need to stop and talk with each other. And again, when you're controlling the ball, you're looking for the weaknesses of the other team. What is the other team that wants to take you out? Death. So you're looking for weaknesses there, or strengths. Maybe this death is, hey, there's a hazard over there I didn't see before. And, we changed the poles around. We've got the bucket truck in the wrong position, and we've got the plate down, and it's real juicy over here next to that swamp. And I don't know if that's a good place to put that down. What do you guys think about all this? But we need to stop and take these job huddles and just communicate. And I don't see it happening.
So 100%, Brent, right after the job brief. So I see the job brief now as a disruption to synchrony. Because you and I are on the job, we're looking up, we're tipping our heads together. Another guy's hanging a plumb bob. We're looking the job over, and then somebody gets out of their pickup truck and says, "Hey, job brief, let's go," right? And everybody gets together and they're kicking stones, looking at their iPhone while somebody reads them a bunch of checklist things. Mm-hmm. And then we split up and go get bolts and go get our rubber gear, and we don't reconnect right there. So that job brief turns out to be a disruption to how we were starting to sync. Yeah. Then we don't resync like that. You're talking like a huddle. I mean. I think you're right on. I think we need to train line foremen how to recognize when we're out of sync.
Yes.
Right. So when they see and the disruptions. So I was watching a bunch of guys working, and they're whistling and they're humming right along, getting all this work. And then the FCC field coordinator comes up, and nobody likes him. And I hear one of the guys about goes, "Oh crap, here comes Ed." And it was like letting the air out of a balloon. It's just all of a sudden their sync was gone because, Ed's here. Crap, right? So when something goes wrong at that point, the taproot won't blame it on Ed.
No.
Right? But if they recognize, look at that, Ed just shook us up here. Let's just are you with me? How you feeling? You guys with me? All right, we're back together here. Ignore Ed. Ed's not up here in the bucket with us, right? And you create a foreman that now recognizes the disruptors to their sync. Yes. I mean, it's 25 below. There's a wind chill in Ohio, and a guy's about to climb a pole and get electrocuted. That whole scene was so far out of sync. If the foreman recognized and pulled everybody into a huddle, said, "Look, here's what we're doing. This is the risk we're going to take. Let's make sure we fail safely on this. It's 25 below. We can only last a certain amount of time in the air." And they had that discussion. I'd be thinking that 22-year-old would have lived. but each other is all we have.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Right? That is all we have. So when we put somebody down or shame them or hold them at a lower frequency vibration, we are hurting ourselves, because now that guy isn't going to speak up, like Mike was saying. That guy is now, so we all come to work. Let's say I draw a line at 0. We all come to work, and the supervisor yells at this guy. Now he's a -20, and then this other guy gets a pat on the back. He's a +20. We are not at 0 anymore. We're separated by 40 points. We need to get back together at the same level before we go in the air.
Yes.
Right? Because regardless how you're feeling, listen, I know you're having a bad day. Let's talk about it. You know, if we see that you're starting to fumble, we're pulling you out, right? Because if you won't pull yourself out, we have to do it for you. I mean, that's the game we got to. That if we don't start paying attention to each other, nothing's going to change.
Yep, I agree.
And I think the illusion, I mean, I've written a bunch of articles taxing the variables, the illusion of safety. I just came up with another article. There's 3 words I'm trying not to use because of their disruptors: right, wrong, and why. Right? Right is only right in this certain circumstance. Wrong puts you in defense. And if I ask 5 whys on these tap roots, every time I ask why, you get more and more frustrated, because what I'm asking you to do is rationalize and justify some action you made.
Mhm.
That's the past. If I want to use logic and reason, I got to ask how and what questions. How did you see that working out, Brent? And what happened that it didn't work out that way? Not why did you do it? That puts you in immediate defense. And we got to be more sensitive to the language we're using with each other, because it holds us. It's really what's happening is we're mimicking what we're seeing on television in our government, and our government's operating at a really low cognitive level right now. And we are so much better able. These young linemen are brilliant to operate at such a higher level. They have to just be curious and interested, not defense. Don't go to defense. You don't need to go to defense.
Yeah.
Just be curious.
Yeah, and
Billy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, you go, Brent.
Well, I have a question for you, Billy. We talked about the beginning job brief. We talked about, during our communication, our interaction with one another during the job. But hey, we're getting close. We got to get back to the service center. Our time is getting low. We have to get back there. The clock is over today at 3:30. But you know what? We need to stop before we need to start throwing our gear into the truck and wrap things up. We need to stop maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes before all that. And let's get together. What do we do after a game? We had success. We beat death. All right. Everybody's alive. We had success. Yeah, we had a few fumbles, a few things happen during the game, but let's take a few minutes at the end of the game. And hey, Billy, what do you think? What could we have done to accomplish even better success ratio? Mike, what went wrong today in today's game? Hey, we won, but let's talk about after the game. Let's do a debriefing on the job. Let's talk about what we did right and maybe what we could have done better at the end. Billy, what do you think about that?
So I think it's Brent, with your years of experience and your Mike, if you think of that idea, that means it's a good one.
Mhm.
Right? That's where I am nowadays. The reason that thought even came to your mind is because it's such a good idea, right? And however we want to do it, we want to call them huddles, we want to call them pause and sync, that's Lito's language, or if we want to use roles and concerns, we create a pattern where we do a debrief. Do you know, in Africa last week, our assistant guide at the end of every day went around the room and everybody had to just share a high point of the day and anything else that they wanted to talk about. And by doing that, we practiced debriefing for the day, right? Exactly what you're saying, right? So it pulls it together. And then the other thing we can do is say, look, what risks are we going to run into packing this thing up and getting home? We don't want to mess it up now, right? So you start becoming more aware when you do that of what your next step is. But if you just say, okay, time, let's get out of here, let's go, everybody jumps in their truck and they go, and it's willy-nilly. So I applaud that. These are things that are not being consistently done. So here's the question. we need to translate this and foster. So we need to show up at our crew site, if we're a safety guy or we're a supervisor, and foster that this is done to create the behavior. And then tell the guys, look, I want to try to do this every day for a month, and I want you to evaluate it and tell me what happened as a result. Because ultimately, if you don't value this, it won't continue. But if you find value in this, you will implement it yourself. And when you start doing these things that are patterning, and you have new apprentices, they get to see consistency. And when they become journeymen, they will be having their apprentices do it. This is how we steer an industry, by doing actionable things like you're talking about. But it's not going to happen. If I tell the line crew right now, hey, listen, I want you to do a debrief, that ain't happening. It's a pattern change. I have to help them create the pattern change.
Correct.
And that means I got to physically be there at that point of day to make that happen. Who's doing that?
Yeah, what you're talking about, Brent, I like the idea, and I'm familiar with a company that changed their job briefing form to include a end of the day debrief. What went good, what went bad, right? And they put it on the form. So what they did is they expanded that job brief form, right?
But did the form make it happen?
No. It didn't. And what it actually did was, when it didn't, because, these job briefing forms, they get turned in, right? And somebody reviews them. And then this is what kills me, is they try to make a judgment about how effective the job briefing was based on what's on that form, right? And so now they start beating these guys up because they either weren't putting anything in on the daily debriefing, or what they were doing, it was the same every day, right? It was just another thing they had to add on the form. And so the approach to it, I agree with you. I love that, but they just approached it wrong. The guys felt like it was just one more item that they could catch us on. And it had the opposite effect.
If our ECOS people want to change a pattern, we have to disrupt the existing one. So in order to disrupt a pattern, we have to physically be there to help foster whatever it is that's why it can't be a big, I call them a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. It can't be a big thing. It has to be a small thing to try, right? For them to, and help foster that to happen. And then if you start showing up a couple weeks and they're still not doing it, then spend a week there and get them to do it and say, this is your power. The power the industry has is to try these things to see if they make a change. Yep. If they write it off to begin with because they don't trust it or they don't think it's anything, then the same result should be expected, right? Yep. So I don't think I think what we need to let linemen know is we're going to give them the power to evaluate these small ideas like a debrief and these things, and then come back to me. What happened? Did nothing happen? Did you learn something from it? And write down what those wins are. And if there's some way they can tweak it to work better for their crew, great, right? It's theirs. And I think that's, if we want to, I think this live wire idea is awesome, because it's going to make, and I got to tell you, some of the utilities that are listening, it's going to make it a little uncomfortable. And please, just try not to be judgmental or dismissive. Yeah, everybody is with the best intentions to try to make good things happen, but we're seeing it not work.
Correct.
Yes.
So if we can try something we haven't done, and then as an ECOS movement, imagine if we had 10,000 people trying this next week.
Yeah.
And then report back and tell us what happened. Yeah. We could learn as a machine. We get everybody on one side of the rudder. The Titanic will even turn in mud, right? Yeah. But when we're pushing on both sides of the rudder the whole time, it just keeps going straight.
Keeps going the same direction, and that's the direction we're going. And I talk about this a lot. I mentioned that contact is one of that's a big problem in our industry, and it just astounds me that and you talked about this, Bill. We got smart people out there. These are linemen are among the finest on the planet, in my view. Smartest. I mean, these guys, what they do these days, it just amazes me. But yet we've got time after time after time where we've got these people, these crews that approach a job, and based on their knowledge, training, equipment, PPE, everything we have available, cannot determine how to get through that day without someone making contact with an exposed, energized conductor. That astounds me. And you're right, we've got to turn that ship.
If something is making you uncomfortable, then you're right. And you need to not move forward until you know what that thing is.
Yep.
And we need to encourage that. I mean, not write it off like, hey, what are you, a wimp? Shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have to stop that, because that's just killing people.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you have that momentary lapse where, something isn't right, because of the wisdom, like you just mentioned, in our crew makeup, they're almost always correct. Mm-hmm. And then when they get away with it, that line of safety, it's Rasmussen and Practical Drift was the article, I think, if I remember. Once you move that line of safety over, because you got away with it, and you keep moving it over, and all of a sudden something happens, you jump back. Mm-hmm. But you don't ever jump back to the safe zone. You're just back to the other side of the line that you already moved.
Right.
So
your level of risk that you are willing to accept has come down a little bit, right? Or up. It goes up a bit, right? Because everybody has a level of risk they're willing to accept on that job, right? And the more times we get away with it, the higher that bar gets. And all we do, like you said, Bill, something happens, we bring it down a bit, but just to the other side of it. I love that. Yeah.
If we, if we shame people will cave immediatally. I mean, that's just, it's our nature. I don't, there was a study by Ian McCaman. I'm actually speaking next Thursday to a group of I'm avalanche trained, avalanche rescue. And
right.
I'm speaking to a level 2 avalanche class on leadership. And Ian McCaman did a study in 2004 on why 25 people a year were dying in avalanches in Colorado. It had nothing to do with the snow or the avalanche. It had to do with what was driving their decisions. Mm-hmm. Right?
To put you in a position where you could get covered with an avalanche. Familiarity,
consistency, acceptance, right? I want to be accepted by this crew, so I'm not going to say anything against it, right? Mm-hmm. Social facilitation, right? If the boss is here and he says it's okay, it must be okay. Scarcity, when you work in a storm, you've worked in a storm, scarcity is daylight in a storm. And about when the daylight runs out, you hear the little foreman go, all right, we're running out of daylight. And what you hear from the bucket is, hey, when are we going to eat?
Yeah.
Where are we staying, right? Because your DNA kicks in, right? Food, warmth, and shelter is what you're looking for. Yeah. But if you can alleviate those things, you take cognitive load away, right? So rather than say, hey, we're running out of daylight because that's scarce item, you say, hey, let's pause for a minute. Let's do a huddle, like Brent's idea. So it's getting dark. You guys are all pistol carriers. When you look in your breech, you look away and you look in again to make sure it's clear. Before you do anything of any consequence, you look at it, you look away, and look in it again. By the way, we're quitting at 10 o'clock. We're going to go eat, and then we're going to be back at 6 in the morning. Whatever we don't get done, we'll get done tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So scarcity, and then expert halo is the other one. When somebody is the perceived expert, we do default to them because our brain doesn't want to go through the extra work. So, okay, okay, he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, it must be okay. And those are the things that were. It was the most trained people were dying in avalanches, and it wasn't the snow that killed them. It was what was driving their decisions, and that's what I see a very, very similar concept happening in the line department in the electric utility. It's not the work that's killing them; it's the thing that's making their decisions for them.
Correct. Yep.
So I know we ran over, but I appreciate this, and I hope I didn't get too passionate about this. I'm swimming upstream all the time. Any excuse I have to talk about this kind of stuff.
Me too.
This is I just can't reiterate enough that if we can translate all of these great ideas to some change at work is in physical reality. death, injury, all occurs in physical reality. It's not an opinion.
No,
we have opinions about things,
right.
but the reality is the solution needs to be in physical reality. We need to have some small thing for linemen to do.
Yep.
And then if we respect them, we need them to evaluate it. It can't be a management-driven decision that they will just suck up to, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be something that we are a partnership with the utility. We're in a partnership with management. Listen, this is something we'd like you to figure out and tell me what you think. Just like that chainsaw you just told me about and that FR clothing.
Yep.
This is your power. You're going to be able to evaluate this and tell me what we learned from this, so we can either adjust it or move on.
Yep.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
All right.
You got any final questions, Brent, for Mr. Billy?
No, Billy, you were outstanding and fit the whole genre what this live wire is all about, and it's amazing knowing you and seeing your passion and your assessment by looking at the forest and seeing the whole picture. And we need to be steered that direction because, like I said, what you bring to the table is the missing link. And we need to go there and understand it and learn from you and implement that into our program and grow and be safe and be happy by doing so. Thank you, Billy.
Well,
Yes.
I appreciate both you guys. I mean, I believe I don't want people to be dependent on me. There's only one of me. I appreciate that you guys see what I'm talking about. What we need to do is train the trainers, train these foremen to recognize what synchrony is and how to get in and out of it, right? To train safety people to come in and do specific things that are going to enhance their ability to see these things, not just check wheel chocks, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but it requires fostering, and I know I've been hired by companies to come and speak, and I always try to encourage them. I really would like to get in with your crews to help foster the change, because the speaking is only one piece of it. The change happens when you foster the change. When we have a pattern and a system that we're working with, and we're really good at it, right? So if we're going to make small changes to that's a pattern disruption, and that doesn't happen without effort and energy.
Yep.
So, Brent, I appreciate all the kind words you have for me. It's encouraging because, as you know, I am swimming upstream quite regularly these days. And Mike, it's such a pleasure to meet somebody of like minds.
Thank you, Mike.
We Billy, here a while back, and it's the same way that I met Brent. One day I just sat down and started making some videos, because I wanted to talk. I wanted to figure out how to get some of the stuff in my head out there. So I started making some videos, and I started posting them on Facebook on Linemen Take a Stand for Safety, and Brent ran onto a couple of them, and he got a hold of me, and I remember you reached out once. I did one, and there was something about it that caught your ear, and you said, we need to meet, because I think you felt, that I was talking your language a bit, and it took us a while to get there, but we're there, and I'm grateful that we finally met, and looking forward to maybe working more with you down the road. So
I appreciate it. Yeah, this whole line team idea, I think what we're trying to do is foster a safer industry for these younger linemen that are coming through, to help them navigate a really difficult situation between. I mean, if you're a contractor, you got to do onboarding for every utility because and all the work is the same. So they sit through all this onboarding that they don't really see as a benefit. But because there's so many check the box things. So
that's all it is.
We can do all the things that are compliance regulatory for the utilities, but we also need to create a worker-centered safety that's portable, that these linemen take with them from contractor to contractor, right? Something that they believe in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen when the industry starts to do that. The utilities that are floundering with what to do next will start to copy what they're doing.
Yep.
That's the future I see. If we create our own portable safety that makes sense to our workforce,
Yeah.
the utilities will copy that because they're looking for something that makes sense also.
That's right. That's right.
And I think LiveWire will help that happen. Just saying.
I hope so. So yeah, episode 1, guys.
Woo!
I think I feel good about it. I think we had some great conversation. And looking forward to many more. I'm going to finish just like we started. I get told all the time that things are just going to happen. We can't prevent everything, and maybe we can't prevent everything, but I am 100% on board. We can prevent serious injuries and fatalities. We do not have to accept where we're at. We can do better. So
Einstein's, my favorite quote by Albert Einstein, is we can't solve the problems we face today at the level of thinking we were at when we created them.
Correct.
And I think what you guys are doing is coming to a new level of thinking. So I appreciate that.
I hope so.